This is David Neal. How's it going?
Hey, David, what's up, man?
Man, I was in the car with my wife and my twins, my 2.5-year-old twins, and they were screaming like holy heck. I was trying to get as far away as I possibly could, and I ended up sneaking in the house. So I'm looking out the window. I could see the look on my wife's face like, thanks for leaving me in here with this. But I told her I needed to be able to focus as best I could.
Hopefully you're not in too much trouble with your wife when you get back in there.
No, man, it's all good. She knows it's what put food on the table.
You're probably going through a wide variety of emotions. It's release week. How you feeling?
You know, I think that I think they're always stressful. I think that there's always a lot of emotions that kind of run through your brain. And, you know, I'm a very sentimental guy, and I feel like that anytime you have a moment like this, you kind of go back, you know, all the way to, you know, I tell you all the time, you know, the fact that I was 17, 18 years old, and I decided I was going to move to Nashville to be a singer. You know, it's crazy that you make such a big, important decision at such a young age, and obviously I had no clue how in the hell I was going to do it or really the direction that, you know, I should go or anything like that. And so I think that anytime that, you know, now here we are 20 years later, it's just, you know, it's fun, it's emotional, it's exciting, it's neat to, you know, it stresses you out when you think that it's been 20 years, but, you know, it's just been really great. You know, I've had a lot of people that have supported me, and obviously this process has been a little different, you know, kind of more or less, you know, kind of putting it out on my own record label, and have contracted a lot of the workout, you know, to other people, and but having to make all the decisions and all the calls, and you know, it's a lot of work, but I think in a lot of ways, you know, it makes it a lot more rewarding.
And how did the Well Ravens come to be for you?
You know, it's funny. I was just talking to somebody earlier this morning, and that seems to be the most popular question I get these days. And, you know, it's well, I feel like that, you know, just over the course of my career here, and I feel like I've heard so many people say, oh, man, you know, I think me, you, and so-and-so, or me and this person and that person, we should make a record together, or we should do something together. And 10 years, 15 years later, you're still talking about doing it. And I always kind of, it used to drive me crazy. And I had a couple of guys that I ended up doing this project with that worked with me for about 4 or 5 years. And, you know, we were probably on the road those, you know, 3 or 4 years, you know, probably 200 days out of the year. So obviously when you spend that much time together, you're going to talk about a lot of things, listen to a lot of music, drink a lot of beer, and a lot of those times, you know, we talked about the hypothetical. Hey, someday down the road, you know, we'd like to do this. And, you know, Jason is a really talented engineer, producer, musician himself, and Andy P's kind of a one-man band, kind of can play a little bit of everything. And, you know, I've always been, you know, for most of the songs I feel like that I've been a part of writing, I've always been very, very close to the lyrical process, and it's always been very, very important to me, and the melodies as well. But, you know, we just finally said, you know, we were going to get together and we were going to see what the heck happened. And I think, you know, because of the circumstances of not being at Universal anymore and kind of having the freedom to do whatever it was that I wanted to do, you know, and I told them that. I said, hey, I have no clue what in the world is going to come of this. You know, we may be looking at each other for 8 hours and 8 hours later we ain't even got a line or a melody or anything. But I think just not having any pressure and not having any expectations really allowed us to kind of be free and kind of go with the flow, and I think that's what really made it special. And as the songs kind of started to come out, you know, I can remember instances where those two guys would just look at me and go, what in the hell are we going to do with this? You know, what is this? What do we call this? And I just remember immediately saying, this is that Well Ravens record that we talked about. My band's always been called the Well Ravens from the very, very beginning, and it just made sense. You know, it just seemed like the perfect time. Everything happened so organically, and you know, I always tell people I'd love to say there's this really elaborate, great story where, you know, I met somebody famous and they just said, hey, you're going to do this, and this is the name of your band, but it is not, you know, it's not elaborate, it's not very cool or unique, it's just, you know, everything just happens so naturally. And I think at the end of the day, you know, if I were to list out all the things that I'm most proud of, that's probably it. You know, the fact that it wasn't something that we sat down, we tried to map out and, hey, we're going to make a record that sounds like this, or we're going to write a song that talks about this. You know, we were all just trying to keep track with each other and hopefully not, you know, embarrass the other person across the room from us. And we probably had, you know, 10, 12, maybe 13 songs. When we kind of listened back, I felt like, you know, rather than put 12 or 13 songs that were kind of all over the map, we just kind of narrowed it down to these 7. I felt like that they were the best songs and kind of seemed somewhat consistent to each other. And thus the Well Ravens was born. Now,
I heard one of the new songs earlier in the year at a show in Kansas City. It's called White Trash Girl. What's the story with that song?
You know, what's funny is, you know, we had agreed initially to meet for 3 days, and we were going to work, you know, till we couldn't hold our eyes open. Had to go home. We all had new babies at home, and so we kind of, you know, were at the mercy of our wives and when they said it was time to come home. But we had a couple of rules, and the most important was, you know, we couldn't bog down on a specific idea. If it didn't feel like it was kind of coming out really easily, we had to move on. And, of course, you get 3 stubborn guys in a room together, and the first idea we started on, we were just trying like holy heck to make it cool, and it was just terrible and going nowhere. And finally, about 7, 8 o'clock at night, I looked at him and I said, hey, you know, we can't end on this note. We gotta stop here. We gotta come up with something cool, at least to look forward to, you know, tomorrow. And I remember Andy P just picked up a guitar and he kind of strummed this weird sound and kind of had this drum loop that was real funky and was way different than the thing that we were working on, way different than anything that I'd ever done before. And I'd had that title in kind of a thing on my phone where I just keep different phrases and lines and stuff that I hear that I think are unique. And we had to leave, and I've probably been to Jason's studio 150 times since I've known him, and I've always passed this railroad track, but I've never once got caught by a train. And that night, as exhausted as I was, I got caught by a train. It's probably about 5 or 10 minutes long. And I just kept listening to this little guitar lick over my stereo, and just in that amount of time that I was sitting there at that train track, I literally wrote down the words to the entire song, and I texted and I said, boys, we're going to start with something hip and cool tomorrow, so get ready. And I kind of sang the melody that I was hearing into the phone, and you know, it was different. You know, I had no clue where the idea came from. You know, like I said, it was just kind of a phrase that I thought that had something to it. You know, whether it's a white trash boy, white trash man, girl, whatever, I think we've all kind of grown up with that person that maybe made some decisions or maybe lived kind of a life that was a little too wild. But, you know, I thought the cool thing about the concept of the idea was that, you know, she wasn't, at least, you know, publicly she didn't shy away from the person she was, and she was just who she was, and a lot of it was maybe a product of how she was raised, where she was raised, and but the main thing, you know, it's weird. You have a lyric like that, and you talk about how fun the groove is and how kind of hip and fun it is to play. It's kind of a contradiction to the storyline, but you know, it was just something funky. It was something way different than anything I'd ever done. And you know, I will say, whether it's White Trash Girl or In My Head or Heavy or any of the songs on the record, it really wasn't until, you know, 2-3 months down the line when the songs were starting to near completion that I ever remember kind of looking back and listening and really paying attention to how, I guess, non-serious or how serious or whatever the topics were. I mean, like I said earlier, I mean, it was literally 3 guys just kind of trying to keep our head above water. I mean, we did everything at the same time. We wrote, recorded, tracked all the instruments, all the vocals simultaneously, and so there really wasn't a whole lot of time to kind of sit and wonder, okay, is this line hip, or are people going to think this is stupid? And you know, I've said it 100 times. That is one of the coolest factors. Is, you know, we more or less wrote and recorded this record in probably 9 to 12 days over the course of several months, and so it was just there wasn't a whole lot of time for kind of hypothetical and over analyzing, the little things. We were just trying to create something that was true to the overall initial idea of just getting together and kind of seeing what happens. And that we dug first and foremost. We sure as heck never expected that a year later it'd be coming out.
Now, you've released all your albums through Universal, but this time you're on your own doing it independent. What are the big differences you've noticed on this so far?
I think the biggest is, I've more or less been at a major record label for 14, 15 of the 20 years I've been in town. And so, you're very much, I don't want to say stuck, but you've seen it done for the most part a specific way for 75% of the time that I've been here in the business. And so it's hard to really allow yourself to explore other ways of doing it, whether it's just recording it, or whether it's how to market it, how to release it, whether we go to radio and try to do it the traditional way, so to speak. It was obviously doing it myself, and I guess we're somewhat kind of limited. Obviously, you don't have a multi-million-dollar budget that a major record label does, but, my goal initially was, I wanted it, whether it was the way it was presented, whether it was the artwork, whether it was the sound or the quality of the mastering, or, I wanted it done as professionally and as close to how we did things in the past, and I wanted it to match up quality-wise. And obviously there were a lot of things, as far as I know, I'm not going to the Today Show tomorrow or Friday to have this big, unveiling of the record or anything like we had done, with the last two records. So there's some things that, we knew initially just weren't going to happen, but like I said, it forces you to be a little bit more creative. It forces you to be a little bit more probably over the top on social media, because you're in essence, you got probably 10 to 12 people doing what 75 to 100 people did in the past. So, and obviously with more or less an unlimited budget. So it's different, but it's been so much fun. I think just knowing subconsciously that this time we were going to have to do it different. We had thought about taking it to a label or doing that, but I think in the back of my mind, I just feared overthinking it too much, and I feared that if we did go to another record label, that the reality of getting it out sometime in 2018 was probably slim to none, and I just wanted. It wasn't that I wanted to rush it by any means, but I also didn't want. I think anytime you're a creative person, the one thing this record has done more than anything is just sparked so many creative avenues for me. I mean, I'm constantly thinking about, like, what I want to do next. And do I want to go back and record old songs? Do I want to make a record with just a piano? Do I want, it's just, your head's in a million places. And so, if we weren't going to release it this year, the reality is it probably was never going to be released because you would be so far down the road on whatever was next that your just head wouldn't be into it. And so it was really important for me to once it was done, to release it as soon as possible. And so we chose to go about this way. And like I said, there's some pluses, there's some pros and cons to obviously each way. But, I think, there's a whole lot of pride. When I look at the back of that, or I look at iTunes or Spotify or whatever it is, and it says, this is from 1-5 Sound, that's my company that I created, and David Neal and the Will Raven are the only artist on that record label. But it's just been super rewarding and exciting, and I think that it's impossible not to take a lot of pride in doing it the way we've done it.
Now, jumping topics on you a little bit here, your last album, The Fighter, you had a song that you recorded with Vince Gill. Now, you are one of my favorites, and Vince Gill is one of my favorites. How did this come to be?
Well, thank you. What's funny is that song, I Won't Let You Go, was a song that there were two songs I had written down on a sheet of paper at the end of the I'm a Fire record. when we were recording, and one was "I Won't Let You Go," and the other one was Galveston. And when I looked at my producer Frank Liddell, I showed him the sheet of paper, and he had heard "I Won't Let You Go," but maybe once or twice, and not recently. And so he grew up in Houston, not far from Galveston. He knew the love that I had for Van Campbell, and he had just kind of recently began his battle with his illness and everything. And so I think in a lot of ways Frank just thought that was a really nice way to tribute him. And so he said, we got to do Galveston. And I remember I looked at him and I said, well, if I'm going to do this, he's married to Leanne Womack. I said, you got to get Leanne to sing on it. And she did. And it was this amazing, moment on that record. And so when it came time for the Fighter record, really at I guess, we had recorded probably 10 or 11 songs, and the record was done, and I had my babies, and I remember listening to the record for the first time, and it just didn't speak to me the same way that it had, prior to having my kids. And so I started writing more towards, I guess, after my kids were born, and a lot of the stuff was extremely personal. And so I talked Frank into telling the label to let us go back in and record 4 or 5 new tunes, and he said, well, do you even know, what in the hell you want to record? And I said, well, I know I want to record this song. I played it for him, and he goes, holy cow, I forgot about that song. I said, sweet, I'm glad you like it. Now you got to get Vince Gill to sing on it. And he was like, well, I think once he hears it, he'll dig it. And Vince has always been so over-the-top good to me. There's two or three stories where I probably had a little too much wine or something else and confronted or walked up to Vince to tell him, what a huge hero he was to me. And, fortunate enough, my wife was there both times, so I have a witness. And both times he was just over the top, complimentary of me and how I sang. And, I remember the first time I met him, he said, man, it's so good to have a good singer back on the radio. And I about passed out. I remember looking behind me to see if there's somebody else behind me or if he was talking to me. But it was, he's just, everybody tells him I don't think he's ever said no to sing on anybody's record, so I didn't want to be the first person. And he's just, I had lost my grandmother that year that we made that record, and I can remember when I first got into country music, I'd go over to her house, and she'd have all these CDs. She was one of those members of those clubs where you bought 14 CDs for a penny or something, and then you got a bill a year later for $200, and I had to actually pay for them. But I remember her having every Vince Gill record, and I would just listen to them on this old little $40 CD boombox. And my goal in life was to always be able to sing high like him, and I'm still trying. But he's just such a sweet person. I can remember going to college basketball game, here at Belmont University here in town, and he's a big supporter of them. I remember going there, and he's just sitting there in a sweatshirt and his glasses and a pair of sweatpants. And I remember thinking, man, if you sold as many records as he has, and you're as big a superstar as he has, and he's comfortable enough in his own skin to show up at a basketball game where everybody in the world is going to know who he is, in a pair of sweatpants and a sweatshirt, he truly is comfortable in his own skin. And I just always really admired that. And I remember somebody very early on in my career telling me, hey, man, when you walk down the street, you need to make sure everybody knows it's David Nail. And I said, man, Vince, I just saw Vince Gill in sweatpants, so I can wear sweatpants everywhere. And I darn near do wear sweatpants, at least in the wintertime, about every day. And I always think about that. But I just, man, I hadn't seen him or talked to him in a while, but, we're on the same record label for over a decade. And, just to be able to say that, it just blows me away. And I think that, just hearing him sing, I can remember telling Frank when I heard it for the first time, I said, man, it's one thing that he sang on it. It's another thing that he didn't mail it in. He really, worked on it and made it, a Vince Gill and David Nail song. And I can remember not long after that, we went to see him at the Ryman sat dead center in the balcony, which is supposedly the best seat. There's 3 or 4 songs in the show, and my wife looked at me and she said, "Man, it's the best show I've ever been to." And he just has an amazing sense of humor and just a wonderful person, and he's been so good to not just me, but so many artists, you know, and I think a lot of times, you know, especially when I moved to town, it was real. I think there was kind of a changing of the guard, so to speak, between some of the artists that have been on the radio and kind of mainstream and kind of the newer people taking over. And I can remember there being a little tension there. And, you know, I always felt like he just handled it so well. It was just like, you know, hey, you know, my time has come, and I'll keep doing music for the people that want to hear it, and you know, we'll make way for these other people to come in behind us. And I always just thought that was very graceful, and always really admired that. And ironically, now that I tell that story, I was eating breakfast yesterday morning, and somebody asked me at the restaurant, they said, "Hey, man, you know, you going to be on the radio again?" And I said, "Well, you know, I've had my time on the radio, and I like being on the radio, but there's some kids behind me I'm sure want to be on the radio too." See Vince Gill, he's like, it's subliminal messages. Now I'm like talking like Vince Gill.
I've got some fan questions here for you. Tamara wants to know, when are you going to do a Missouri-only tour?
Holy smokes. I mean, I never thought about that, but that would be awesome. I don't know where in the world you would play, or, you know, obviously, I think, you know, when you said that, the thing that popped in my mind is it'd be neat to do it, like, not in the obvious places. You know, I think everybody would think you'd go to Springfield, you know, St. Louis, Kansas City, big cities, but it'd be kind of neat to pick, you know, maybe some places that don't really ever get any shows. That's actually a good idea. I'm going to have to steal that. You know, I've always said that there's, and I mean it more than anything, there's nobody in the world that's more proud to be where they're from than I am. And I've written a whole lot of songs that have referenced it. And, you know, I think, you know, especially coming off yesterday, September 11th, and watching TV constantly, and, you know, you just heard over and over, you know, hey, I'm a native New Yorker, I'm a New Yorker, I'm proud to be a New Yorker. And I remember just watching that all day yesterday and just, you know, feeling the same way, but obviously about, you know, where I'm from, and you know, you have a tragedy that happened, you know, most recently with the boats and the lakes and the lives that were lost. And it's just crazy how, you know, when you're from someplace, even though you don't know any of those people, and I've never been on that lake and never been on one of those boats, but it just hit me like, you know, I'm sure people in New York that lived there on September 11th, you know, that affected them. So, yeah, I obviously have a lot of pride and satisfaction to be from there, and I probably follow all the sports teams and probably in reality care about it probably too much for those I am. But I think anytime you spend 18 years of your life in a place, especially at an early age, you know, that's such an impressionable time in your life that, you know, it's really hard to, you know, I've in essence lived in Nashville longer than I have in Missouri, but, you know, anytime I tell people I'm from Nashville, it seems weird, you know, and I always kind of end up correcting myself and saying, well, I'm originally born and raised in Missouri, and I just live in Nashville for work now, so that's a good idea.
Well, it's no secret you're a big St. Louis Cardinal fan, and Ryan wants to know, what do you think about their up and down season so far this year?
You know, I got to admit, you know, one of the coolest things that being a singer has allowed me is the opportunity to form friendships with a lot of people in a lot of different sports and a lot of different organizations. And I know people, you know, that work for the Royals and obviously people that work for the Cardinals. And the bad thing is a lot of times you get so close to it, you end up kind of hearing or seeing or, you know, just probably more than you, obviously the normal fan, but more than you really want to. And it's suddenly the way you watch games and the way you follow your teams changes. I have to admit, you know, I've met Mike Matheny, you know, 2 or 3 times, and, you know, I remember Tony La Russa saying, you know, that's a guy you want your daughter to marry, and everybody just talks about what a wonderful person he is. And I mean, when I say you see somebody in a room that's got the it factor, I mean, that guy just, I mean, it's not just because he's good looking. I mean, a guy just has charisma. I mean, he just oozes it. And you just know that guy is an important person. But for whatever reason, you know, this year, I don't know if the message got out. I don't know if guys started tuning him out, but it was very evident that, whatever the initial direction of the team was not, happening on the field, and it was hard to watch, man. I can remember actually the night before they let him go, my parents were in town, and I had to turn the game off, and there was probably 3 or 4 errors, which was happening almost every day, and I remember telling my dad, like, the next day when they let him go, I said, man, I can't believe it. I said, but I kind of can, there was definitely a need for change, and, I think that this turnaround is amazing. I'm kind of one of those fans that I'm always, like, a little pessimistic. Like, I'm like, okay, now what happens when we come back to reality? But, the glorious thing, I played on some baseball teams. Baseball is just one of those sports when the wheels start turning and things start snowballing. You can look through history, and guys will have 2-month stretches where they're the best player in the game, and, 2 years later they're out of the game. But it's just one of those sports where anything can happen if you get rolling at the right time. You look at both 2006 and, 2011 when they won it. I don't think anybody in the world, in June or July would have thought they would have won it. But, you get going at the right time you can. And I think that they're definitely in kind of in a position where you've got some of the older guys that are probably at the end, and a lot of young guys coming up. And, I think, if you were to get people in a room and give them some truth serum, these young guys coming up, I think anytime, you got somebody coming up that's trying to take your job, it motivates you. And so a lot of these older guys, it's probably put a little pep in their step. And then obviously the young guys are wanting to play, and obviously you're young and have a lot of ability. So I think it's probably a good recipe. I think the pessimistic part of me is like, man, well, I don't want to have this huge run. It's like a huge tease. It comes down to the end of the season, the last day, and we don't make the playoffs. I'll be the 39-year-old guy in Nashville, Tennessee that's like crying in his front yard. So hopefully if they keep winning, we make the playoffs. And it's like I saw somebody post yesterday, like, oh, we're guaranteed to finish at least 500. I'm like, when the hell in the world have the Cardinals ever been satisfied with 500? 81, like that. That's not good. That's like kissing your sister. So hopefully they can keep it up, man. I tell you that it's been fun, man. This whole salsa thing and the Matt Carpenter stuff. I mean, it's one of the most amazing things I've ever watched, and I've watched a lot of sports in my life.
Well, Shane was curious if the new album, Only This and Nothing More, will see a vinyl release.
I never thought about that. We did a pre-order thing where we actually printed up some CDs for some people, and what's random is I haven't even seen them, so I don't even know what the physical thing looks like. Now that I think about it, it's pretty crazy because it comes out in 2 days. But I don't know. What's crazy is the vinyl thing is so hip now that now it's expensive. It's like, people complain about how expensive it is to buy vinyls. It's like, you should see how expensive it is to make them. If everybody, I assure you, every artist in such a trend would want to do it. It's just, economically, sometimes it doesn't seem that practical. So, if I had the truth serum, I would probably say probably not. But if he wants to take up a fund or whatever, I won't try to make a penny. We can do it. If we can figure out a way to do it, of course, we'll make as many as people want.
Hey, Pledge Music, if you're listening, let's get something going on this. So I told my wife, Nellie, she could have the last question of this interview because she is a huge fan, and she wants to know, how do you balance being a musician and a father?
I think the craziest thing is the first year they were born, for whatever reason, they were born in December. At the end of 2015, I can remember telling my manager, I was looking at agents, I said, I'm going to take 2.5 months off at the start of the year, and I don't want to work a day, and just want to be at home with them and help out and everything. And what's hilarious is I'm like, why in the hell did I think 2.5 months was okay? Like, why 2.5 months? Why not 2 months? Why not 4 months? But in my head, 2.5 months was the perfect number. And it was ludicrous because, you don't come up for air until 4 months. And so I remember the rest of that year, we were just constantly trying to kind of make up for, your message just coming off whatever she's got. So everybody wants to book you, and we were making up for taking 2.5 months. I remember we started the year on West Coast for like 4 weeks, and it just seemed like we were constantly trying to catch up. I remember at the end of that year, 2016, I remember just being as exhausted, as burnt out as I'd ever been, and being extremely concerned just from a professional standpoint of like, man, is this like the good Lord telling me like it's time to pack it in? And I remember being super stressed about it and talking to a lot of different people, and everybody just had the same comment. They're like, man, it sounds cliche, but once you have children, like it just changes your focus. It changes your mindset. And so last year we worked on purpose about a third of what we had had the previous, I guess, 2 or 3 years, and it was perfect. There was a lot of weekends where we only had one show, and I always enjoyed like those shows where, you know, I'd look at one of the guys and be like, God, man, I wish we were playing tomorrow night, you know. Then you'd get home the next day and you'd be like, God, man, I'm so glad we're home, you know. And it's just weird, like it just, you know, whereas before you could go on the road for 2 or 3 weeks and you'd be tired, but, you know, it wasn't like you missed your wife or anything, you know. That was a joke, by the way. But when you have kids, man, it's crazy, man. I think that, you know, part of it is you feel guilty about your wife being home, you know, with 2 kids and having to do all the work by herself. And obviously you come home and you see how hard it is, how crazy they are. And you know, you kind of get your head above water, and then all of a sudden, you know, they discover something new or how to do something else or get into something else. And it's just, you know, I mean, I will say this, and I've never said this until just now, but it just popped in my brain. I remember when I met my wife and we started dating, and we had a couple of ugly arguments. I mean, they're just drag-out fights. And when I proposed to her, I told her, I said, you know, I've seen you at your worst. You've seen me at my worst. And all those mornings after those, you know, issues, like, I always loved you, like, a little bit more, like, in some sick, crazy way. Like, it made me care about you more. And it's like that with kids. Like, the more they stress you out, the more crazy they are. I mean, yesterday, if you'd have been in our house, like, it was, I'm in it right now. I'm wondering how in the world I can walk on the floor, because there was just crap thrown everywhere. And they have no concept of listening. I mean, it's just, I think the only word they know how to say right now is no. And it's just mayhem. But, like, I told my wife last night, I said, you know, 30 minutes after you get them to bed, you want to wake them back up because you miss them and you want to be around them and hang out with them and everything. And it's just, I know there's super long-winded answer to say, like, it's like that. You want to go play music, but it's a constant push-pull back. Like I want to go out and play, but, you know, the times this year, and it hasn't been a lot, the times this year where we've had, you know, maybe back-to-back shows, it's like, man, I'm so glad we played 2 shows, but there's no way in hell I could have played a third. Like, you're just so, like, yearning and to be home, and you feel bad, and especially like now where they can talk and they can tell you, you know, there's days where I'm not going anywhere, and all of a sudden my daughter will look up and she'll be like, Daddy, you go on an airplane today? And you just rips your heart out, because you're like, man, she knows, like, someday I'm going to leave. And you just wonder if they think, well, is Daddy ever going to come home? So it's tough, but it changes the way you think about things, you know, and obviously, you know, when you do this for a living, you going on the road's part of it, but it definitely, you know, it's not a lazy thing. It's not I'm too good to go out and play. It's just, I think subconsciously you know how important it is. You know, like, my number one priority is obviously to be a husband and a father, so it just, you know, that kind of wins out, I guess, so to speak. And, you know, what they say, like a happy wife, a happy life. So when she has help, she's a happy wife. And so, speaking of that, I probably should go back out the car. I probably should even see if the car is in the driveway. I guarantee you that if they're not here, the meltdown that I just left when I left earlier was about slushies. That's the new fascination, is like they know what road Sonic's on, and if you even get close to that, it's like the magnetic pull of Sonic is so overpowering, and they know. They're like, my son's like, no, turn this way. And it's the craziest thing in the world. Like, I tell my wife, like, when they don't listen, she goes, "Oh, they're just 2.5. Like, they're kids." I'm like, they freaking know how to get to Sonic. They know the difference between right and wrong, and they can listen and comprehend. So don't be like telling me that they're 2.5. Like, they're smarter than you think.
Dude, everybody loves a good slushie. Well, you can pre-order David's new album, Only This and Nothing More. It's available on iTunes, Amazon, or at davidnail.com. David, thank you so much for taking time with me, man. You're one of my favorites, so this means a lot to me.
Boss, I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate the support. And, yeah, man, hopefully if you're listening to this, get on whatever site digitally that you listen to your music. And give us a chance, man. Just listen to it. It's different, but hopefully there's something in those 7 songs you can dig.